I also wanted to ask you what you thought in terms of all of the people who were saying that the rioting is not the proper way to that the proper response to this. People saying, you know, destroying your own community is not the answer. When we saw a lot of white people out there that were rioting and looting, and we even saw a white woman in a wheelchair that was stabbing black people who was not really that was standing up or whatever. I would love to hear what you say to what would you say to those people? It makes me so angry I start stuttering.
Okay, a couple of things. Number one is that we don't own no Target, so that's not our community. The black community. Target is a gigantic corporation. We don't own no Targets. That's not our community. That's the first thing. Secondly, is this: I saw a meme that somebody posted. The meme was of Dr. King, our dear sister Rosa Parks, Abernathy, I think a couple other people. And the meme, and it showed them walking, not sure which protest it was from. At the bottom of it, it said, the meme it said, "This is a protest," and at the bottom it had the people in Minnesota. It said, "This is a riot." And then they were like, "Look how ignorant it is, how people are acting." Here's the only problem with that. You see the guy in the middle of that picture, Martin Luther King Jr.? They blew his head off, okay? Some years after that. The state, we're not stupid, we know how that happened.
That's right.
Blew his head off, knocked half of his jaw off, took a father away from their family, a husband away from his wife, and Martin Luther King away from us. So apparently, there's no appropriate way to do it, right? So apparently, it doesn't matter whether or not you come in complete turn the other cheek peace, or whether or not you're ready to go to war, because the outcome seems to be the same. Stop worrying about the tantrum or the response and concentrate on the problem. If you have more of an issue with somebody carrying toilet paper out of Target than the knee on a black man's neck, then something's wrong with you. And you're sidetracking us because we know what you really mean to say. We know what you're actually trying to say. It's a non-starter. And I would also tell black people or anybody that's into trying to solve this problem, don't be concerned about that type of sentiment. Ignore it. Ignore that.
Yeah.
We want peace. We want to deal with things in the most peaceful way that we can. But more than anything, more than we want peace, we want results. We want to be heard. We want to be seen. That's what we want, and that's what we're demanding.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I grew up in a community that I told you that we had to watch people get murdered, and there were no cameras. They swept it under the rug. Now the names and the hashtags are, now that we have hashtags, that was before they even had hashtags. And I sit down and I think about this. Ben laughs at me because I always say, burn it all down, because he's like, you too much of a revolutionary. And I don't think, when we talk about this country, we talk about the Jabuki, the comedian, tweeted this whole thing. He was like, the real American looting is you loot in Guatemala, you loot in Iran, you loot in Puerto Rico, you loot in the Congo, you know. And so we have these people who spoke out so much against Colin Kaepernick and talked about his knee protest. And now they're calling these people thugs. And Donald Trump shows himself every day. But I'm always going to be of the belief that he's the least dangerous of the pack, because he's the clown, the dummy that we hear all day long. Meanwhile, Mitch McConnell and Barr are doing the dirty work. But so when we talk about these fucking protests and these people, I mean, you damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you take a knee and you are peaceful, there's something wrong with you. If you burn down the Target, when we talk about these protests, did you see the cops that they busted that were actually busting out the windows? And they actually identified them, right? I believe that they are present in all of the protests. And what do you think about that? This is it's not an isolated incident in Minnesota. These motherfuckers are doing this everywhere that you see the riots and blaming it on the black people of the communities.
Listen, what you guys talked about before was real, the political power of the police, the lobby that the police have on both sides, by the way, left or right.
Yes.
You can't really get much done if it looks like you're soft on crime. Or to be honest with you, if you want to do anything specifically for black or brown people, it's very hard to be an American political player. It's difficult. There are a bunch of people that truly believe that this is their country and we're just living in it. So while you don't want to paint, I'm not even going to go there. I don't give a damn about how they're painted. Like, the reality is that where I'm from, we live in a police state. Where I'm from, there is absolutely zero comfort when the cops show up.
That's right. Same.
There isn't any comfort when the cops show up. You don't feel safer when the police are there. That's not to say that you don't need the police, and that's not to say that if you come home and your car's gone that you wouldn't call the police. It's just not to say that. It's just to say that my heart rate goes up when I see the cops, not down.
Rightfully so.
So for me, there's no reason to believe in any case that there's any altruism on the part of the police department or that they're incapable of anything. We know that America has casted certain people in a villain role. And because they've casted those people in a villain role, they are invested into keeping them there. Now, there are a lot of things that we're going to have to address as communities to make sure that we're giving each other the necessary resources to change our situation. And that's going to be us and us alone that have to address that, in my opinion. But at the same time, we also can't try to ignore when people are purposely fucking with us.
That's right.
There's no reason to turn a blind eye to that. So yeah, I don't find that hard to believe at all. I don't find it hard to believe that people are going to take an outpouring of emotion and use it for their political and monetary gain on both sides of this. So what we have to do is try to maintain focus, because even a focused rebellion is effective. If you're going to rebel, like what we really need to do is have some sort of objective to all of this. And to be honest with you, I don't know if what happens today with the indictment of the cop happens unless last night happens.
That's right. I agree with you. I mean, I think if you think about it, if first of all, there was not enough sufficient evidence to bring forth charges. Then that precinct burnt down, and then all of a sudden there was an arrest. So when people say that this is not effective and this is not happening, I do want to ask the difficult question.